saying to me, why are you going to Poland? Because most people's idea of Poland is horse and cart, dusty roads, you know. People don't know how to say no anymore. We live in a culture now where no is not a good word to say anymore. But over the years, I've had some crazy stories from people.
Let's hear them, man. There we go.
We live in two lives now, like the social media world and our real world. And a lot of people are not being honest with themselves through that. So we're like an animal living in a zoo. We're pent up, we're aggressive. You see it on the roads in Warsaw. People don't want to give way to each other. They're in a rush, gotta get here. Everyone's living on the clock, you know? I don't want to live on the clock for a while. I want to live off the clock. In dating as well as friendship these days, this is not just a thing about women, this is men as well doing it. No one has any manners anymore. The city had this kind of sadness to it, but in a way it was captive to me. You know, like I wanted to photograph it.
Today, my guest is Jake Lewis-Hurn, a man of many talents and experiences from barbering to bodybuilding. He's actually my barber, and every time I go to cut my hair, we have these incredible conversations that at some point I said, Jake, listen, we gotta stop talking and record a podcast. And that's what we did. Thank you for supporting the show. Enjoy this episode. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Warsaw Confidential.
Pleasure, thank you.
I met you when I was going through a really dark times, and you asked me how I was feeling, and I told you, I don't know how I'm feeling. I just had this story with this friend, and then we went on for like the whole duration of cutting my hair and everything. And every time I went back to cut my hair, we would have this amazing conversations. And then I told you, man, we got to do a podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So here we are, and I am honored that you joined us today. And so tell me, Jake, if someone clicks on this podcast, what will they learn today?
I think that I'm going to give people a different perspective on life. I know it sounds a bit confident or maybe cocky to people, but I've done a lot of traveling. I've been in a lot of places, met a lot of people, and I think that I can give people a slightly different perspective. So stay tuned.
I'm sure they are. So tell me a little bit about your background, because you're from the UK.
Yes.
And you moved to Poland, to Warsaw especially.
Yeah.
When that exactly?
That was 2017. I was actually living in Vancouver before that. I was there on and off for about 4 years. And I think it was in the first year that I was working, I had a guy enter the shop, said he was in a band. Didn't know the band. He was from Poland. They were on tour, needed a haircut. So took good care of him. We had a good chat, like a connection like we did. And he was talking about opening up one of the first barbershops in Poland, because most people are not aware of this, but before mid-2000s, there was no barbershops here. It was like a unisex salon.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really a place for the guys to go and kick back and have conversation and not feel like there's some things they couldn't say or can't say. So it was a place for men, basically. And he gave me the opportunity. He said, listen, if I'm ever going to open up a shop in Poland, would you be interested in coming? And I said, at the time, I wasn't interested. It was, only 6 months into my Canada living. But as the years went on and my visa started to run out, I wanted to be back closer with family. My brother was having a baby, so I was going to be an uncle for the first time. And yeah, so I thought, why not? And a lot of people, when I was in Canada, were basically, saying to me, why are you going to Poland? Because most people's idea of Poland is horse and cart, dusty roads,
True that,
yeah.
True. So from Canada, you moved to Poland, right?
Yes.
And that was 2015, you say?
2017.
17.
Yeah, I left Canada and I went on my last wild trip for America. I had a 1979 Buick. Okay. This thing was a piece of shit. It was terrible. Always breaking down.
Okay.
But I just loved this car. I paid like $800 for it. And it had like, the seats was like your grandma's couch, yeah, comfortable. You could sit 3 people in the front, 3 people in the back. So I had this vision of doing Route 66 in this car, and that was my last big trip before I came to Poland.
So walk me through your first days in Poland. How did it feel?
Oh,
What were you
man.
thinking? Your first
I remember turning up to Modlin Airport, the guys from work picking me up, You know, I'd never met them before. I knew nobody here apart from my boss, and my boss is like a celebrity here, so he's jet setting everywhere. He's not here all the time, so I've got to make friends. And for me, that's not a problem. I think I can blend in pretty easy. And they picked me up. I had like 3 suitcases with me. They took me to Prague. That was my first spot. And I remember being in Prague like, what the hell is this place? Because normally when you go to places like that in London where I'm grown up, you know they're dodgy areas. Dodgy meaning like they're not safe. And I thought that for the first 5 minutes in Prague. Then I got used to it and everything was fine.
So Prague is the other side of the city.
Exactly, the other side of the river.
Prague, the city.
Yeah. Prague, the other side of the river. My other boss at the time had a nice penthouse, so I had this beautiful apartment, and I was very settled straight away. Everything was very different to me. Like, Canada is a very different country to Poland, as well as UK, but with Poland, it was so much more raw. Well, you know, the people were much more raw. It felt like less European to me than I'd ever been.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how did you navigate this aspect of this rawness of the Polish people?
It took me a little while to try to understand people's ways here. For people going from Vancouver, especially Canada, people are there as known as the most friendliest nation. They're so apologetic if anything happens. They want to be the first to say sorry. But they're nice people. And when I came here, I couldn't grasp Polish culture straight away. People looked a little bit sort of sour-faced, a little bit miserable. I couldn't understand if it was because of me or is their own problems. So it took me, I think, a good year to figure out how people are here. And they're a lot more reserved. I wouldn't say it makes them bad people. It's not the fact, but they're just so different. Mm-hmm. So it took me a little while to get used to people and for people to then open up to you, you know, because you're so different from them.
So I will share a quick story because when I arrived there the first time, I knew I'm going to be staying here because I just felt too good.
Yeah.
And I like to say that home is not a place, but it's a feeling.
Yeah.
And I had that feeling, you know, like walking around the city. Yeah. And I knew I'm going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
Did you have a similar experience?
I had this feeling of like it being on an adventure because the buildings to me, the post-Soviet, you know, the communism, I could still see this. And I've never lived in a place like that before. You know, I'd been to Cuba just before I got here, and Cuba blew my mind. I was like, wow, man, this is a country still under communism. So then when I got to Poland, I see some similarities in the buildings, some in the people, a little bit reserved, but once they get to know you, they'll do anything for you. But yeah, I felt like, especially being a photographer, the city had this kind of sadness to it, but in a way it was captive to me. You know, like I wanted to photograph it. And that's why I think, for me, Warsaw suits black and white anytime I'm taking pictures.
So tell me more about the photography in Warsaw. So how did you go about that?
Photography started for me in Canada. I lived in a huge house with 3 of my best friends, basically. I had one friend, Harry, from UK. We went to Barbering college together. We both moved to Canada. I got him there a couple of years after me. And we had this opportunity to rent this big house, like four floors it was. And it was cheap. The guy wasn't living there. He was living in Toronto. It was an investment. He said, listen, I just want the house to someone to be in there so it's secure, so no one's going to break in. So we was paying, I think, maybe $1,500 a month, something like this. But I'm talking back garden, front garden, rear decking. And so we all moved in. I lived with a photographer that was in journalism. So he done a lot of war photography, stuff with animal trades and furs. And then so I had the other guy that was a fashion and street photographer. So living with them guys, I got to see what photography was about. They taught me, and they always had old cameras. They told me, you know, you got to shoot analog. It's better than digital. You know, you're going to get a different feeling from it. So I started to mix around with basically traveling and taking photos. America was my first spot. And then Cuba started to be my first sort of where I started to understand how to take pictures. And ever since then, my whole purpose of travel now is photography.
While I was doing research on you, I spot that photo of a dying man.
Okay.
Was it in India?
Yes, that was my second day in Mumbai.
Can you tell me more about that photo?
Yeah, absolutely. When I'm traveling and I'm photographing, I'm trying to be in a less touristy spot than I can. I want to meet locals. I want to see what the the country has to offer. Unfortunately, the way that we're built to travel these days is just pure tourism. I'm not saying you can't travel without tourism. A lot of people are just doing the same as what everybody else is doing. I tried to get myself to see their point of view from Mumbai when I was there. So I ended up in Bandra. I can't remember if it was West Bandra or East Bandra. This is a district in Mumbai, and you've got the likes of Bollywood living there. And now, if most people don't know about Bollywood, it is the more richer version of Hollywood. People wouldn't believe that, but there is more money involved in Bollywood than there is Hollywood. So you've got guys there that are worth $650 million, actors, and then you've got people there that are living on the street. So it's such a mix of rich versus poor there. And Mumbai, most people don't know this, but the land there to build is so expensive. It's one of the most expensive real estate in the world, I think. So there's nothing left to build. It's all built on top of each other. So my dream was to go to the poorest slums, to walk through the slums, meet the people, photograph them. Still didn't have a great idea about photography. I could basically capture a good image, but technically I wasn't that good. And I remember being along the one of the sea walls there, which is like you have the ocean view there. And basically I saw this guy laying on the floor, kind of sitting, and he wanted to talk to me. So, I'm an open person. I'll talk to anyone. And everyone behind sitting on the wall was like, don't go to him. He's got diseases. So I got quite close and we chatted, and he understood me. I didn't understand how he understood English, but he understood me quite well. He wanted some water, so I gave him some water. And he had some kind of flesh-eating disease. Maybe, I think his legs were gangrene. The smell was pretty bad. And we was talking, and I was, telling him what I do and what I want to capture. And I signaled for the picture, and he just posed perfectly. And that's when my travel experience changed after India. I realized that, it's when I'm capturing pictures, I want to capture something where other people can be emotional to that photograph. It's not just a photograph. It's going to spark either anger, emotion in some kind of way, like crying, or just shock. And that was a picture for me that changed me for that.
Because that's technically a picture of death.
Yeah.
I would imagine that guy,
Yeah. And in India, you see it a lot. There's another city called Varanasi, which is one of the oldest, holiest cities in the world. There's around 50 cremations there a day that you can watch live. So you can go to this part where the ghat is, and you can basically watch people ready to die. So I met a guy there once meditating, and he was talking with me, and I said, what are you up to today? And he said, I'm going to be dying in a couple of days. And he told me this story of this is the place where he wanted to come. This is where he wanted to be cremated. It's the most holiest place for him in his religion. And then the whole family are there, and you have barbershops lined up all along the place. And I'm not even talking a real barbershop like we have in Europe. This is a guy sitting on a chair. There's even a guy sitting on the floor. And everyone, the tradition there is when someone is about to die, everyone in the family shaves the hair off. It doesn't matter if it's man or woman. Everyone has completely no hair. So the man will shave the whole facial hair off, the hair on the head, the same with the woman, same with the children. And that is part of the ritual there.
So do you think such experiences have changed you as a man?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I felt the way I was seeing the world before was very one-dimensional before. Growing up in a place with family and all of your friends around you doesn't get you outside your comfort zone. You don't see anything different in the world. When you throw yourself out there, I travel alone a lot in the past, and for me it was the best way. I had to meet people. And in some of them people, good or bad, you hear some interesting stories.
We're going to talk about it. So tell me about growing up in the UK, because you mentioned you are having this Peaky Blinders.
Yeah, so
lifestyle.
Yeah, so I would say that basically that part of London, I'm from Northeast London, East London, as most people won't know about, is basically it's an area full of rogues. And we say rogues, it's like guys that are into crime. Not all crime I think is bad, because if you take it into context there, a lot of people there are very poor. So if it meant getting cheap meat, if it meant clothing your children with some stuff that fell off the back of a truck, that's the way the world works in that area. You know, someone's got some knockoff denim jeans. They're going to be cheap. They're half price. There's some steaks. There's some chicken. You know, can be local drug users that are stealing from shops just to pay their habit. And it's all entwined. And that's why I try not to be hypocritical, because there's many times in life where if you're in a struggling state, people don't understand that poverty in England is just like poverty everywhere else. Everyone thinks the richer the country, the less poverty. It doesn't work like that. The bigger the divide, in my opinion, is whenever I was in India, I saw a bigger divide. When I was in London, I saw a bigger divide. So basically that area is full of that kind of stuff. You know, it's notorious for gangsters back in the day. Through the 1940s and 50s, we had a lot of gangland stuff going on there, and it kind of progressed through. So if you went into a local pub, there would all be these characters and faces. When my dad used to take me in his pubs as a kid, you would see, you know, ex-professional boxers, unlicensed boxers to do bare knuckle fighting. There would be, you know, these guys in there that had a deal with another guy. It's kind of mobsterish kind of stuff. And when I was young, it was normalized for me. When I grew up with this stuff, it was normalized, you know?
So how do you stay sane in that environment to avoid, you know?
I think for me, you just don't know. It's like, I suppose for, you know, a person in, say, Africa growing up in a poor place and having to do something every day that is not quite legal. Yeah, you just kind of get used to it. That's your way of life. So I felt like what I was seeing as a child was normal. I don't look at it now and think it's anything bad. I think that it helped me when I was in situations later on in life. It made me understand situations. It made me read situations. If I was in a bar and I felt like the atmosphere changed, I felt more streetwise. I felt, okay, something's not right here. This person's not right. I'm not too gullible as a person. I'm good at reading people. And I think that's where my photography may connect, because I was around them kind of people. And if I was at the age I am now, I would have been photographing them people, because they're characters. We don't make people like that anymore. And it's interesting to say that, because as we get on with life, people are becoming more generic because of the way social media controls us. So for what we scroll and what outfit we look at now is all put in front of us. Whereas before, you used to have to go out there, meet people, see this guy, be impressed with this guy. Oh, I like that guy's watch. I like his shoes. Or, you know, I like the way he sits and, you know, addresses things. So we used to be around socializing and doing them things. So for me, socializing in them aspects, it was exciting as a kid.
And tell me now about your father, because whenever we have a conversation, you mention your father a lot.
Yeah, he's a big figure in my life.
I could tell.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what was your relationship with him, you know, growing up? How did he kind of, you know, shape you to become the man you are today?
I think an older brother. I've got an older brother. I've got an older brother, Joe, and we're close. But just my dad is, he's a fun guy. He's never took life too seriously. I think he's had a lot of troubles in his life, so he's learned that life is very precious. So he's I think he's got his shit together in that sense. I think that he understands how life works. And so growing up was fun. There was not much rules. You know, my mum and dad have been together since they were 14, 15.
Wow.
They've never been married. They've just been loyal to each other. They have a strong bond. And they brought us up to not be so hypocritical, you know? They gave us certain rules not to hurt other people, you know, do things that, if you do things that's going to hurt someone else, it's not good. But, you know, if you're going to go out there and experiment in life, there's not too many rules on that. If you want to go out and drink alcohol young, go and do it. Go see what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Go smoke a cigarette. If they're going to tell me not to do this, I'm going to do it anyway. So, funny enough, growing up, my first beer I had was with my dad. The first time I went to the pub was with my dad, you know. The first proper job I had was with my dad. So we've experienced a lot together. So I would say an older brother, for sure.
And what about your relationship with your brother?
Close. I think as I've moved away over the years, it's been a little bit tougher to bond. But whenever I go back, we're always in the gym together. We did a lot of boxing in my family. My grandfather was a boxer in the Navy. My uncle was a boxer. My dad did a bit of boxing. My brother was a professional boxer. I could have turned professional at some point in my life, but I chose to travel. So whenever we go back, we're very competitive with each other. So we'll go for runs, we'll go to the gym. We're a very sport-orientated family.
Mm-hmm. Does he ever like visit you in Poland here? Or?
Ever.
No?
Never.
Why not?
I think he's got his daughter now, but I think just some people don't have the urge to travel as much. I think it's not for everybody. You know, I think for some people it's exhausting, planning everything, getting time off work. You know, I understand that. Like with my job, balancing getting all my clients fitted in before I go, it's chaos, but I like that chaos. So I think I'll get him here in the next month, I'm hoping.
Yeah, we should hang out, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
He feels like an interesting fella.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy.
Cool, I cannot wait. Let's talk about mental health. Because recently when I was talking to you and I told you, I couldn't believe this friend of mine did this thing to me. Yeah. I'm not going to talk about it. And I left wondering, like, why is that? Why does people nowadays just feel dishonest and not man enough, if I may?
Yeah, I think that, in my opinion...
This episode is sponsored by Immigrants, a brand where Moroccan craftsmanship meets modern luxury. For our Warsaw Confidential listeners, you can enjoy 15% off your purchase by using the code WARSAW15 at checkout, meknes.com. Thank you for supporting our show, for listening, watching, and subscribing.
People don't know how to say no anymore. We live in a culture now where no is not a good word to say anymore. And I've learned over the last probably couple of years from myself, I don't know about you, but saying no is very important because you can't say yes to everything. You're going to be a people pleaser. You need to think about yourself sometimes. And I think these people, some people don't want to hurt your feelings, so they'll beat around the bush with things. But also I feel like, again, I think that since COVID happened, I think that people are more than ever on social media. It's much more, we live in two lives now, like the social media world and our real world. And a lot of people are not being honest with themselves through that. So when you're speaking to people for a phone, as opposed to face-to-face, we'll meet for lunch tomorrow. This is more, I think, more like you're going to stick to it. Whereas people not engaging with each other and just speaking on a phone, it's easy just to send that message and say, you know what, I'm sick today. When you know they're not really sick, you know, but I think that's what it's become acceptable. We've become acceptable now not to have to socialize because we're socializing, which we're not really. So I feel like people have been more dishonest now because they don't need to be honest, because it's acceptable to be dishonest.
So what can we do about it? Because for me, I seem to not accept this situation. I just refuse, and I sometimes, try to lecture people. Whenever they do something bad, I'm like, this man. At the same time, I am feeling like, it's not worth it. I'm wasting my time and breath.
I feel, in my opinion, that I have enough friends around me now that if I have time for them and they make time for me, that's good enough. If they don't make time for me and they can't make time for me, then I'm not getting angry about it. I just think to myself, it will happen, it will happen. I started to realize the people that are around me now are the people that need to be around me instead of chasing after people. I'm a person that can live in solitude. I can be by myself. Like I told you, I travel by myself a lot. But I feel that the people that pick up the phone and call you just to see how you are, instead of wanting something, are the people that I want around me. So like I said, with my father, I have that bond. We call each other mostly every day. Wow. If we don't, then we're sending a message to each other. It can be a stupid meme. It can be anything, But my dad says, when I called him on his birthday, you're only one of 3 people that called me today. That's a 61-year-old guy. So you get to that age, and I feel that I have this theory that when you're young, you have so much more people around you. When you're at school, you're high school, you got loads of friends. Then you leave high school, you get to the age of 20, you may have 10 friends. You get to 30, you've got 5 friends. You get to 40, you've got a few. And then, as you get older, it's hard to make friends. And I think that's the way it is. I think we have a lot more people around us when we're younger, because even in our 20s, I remember one of your last podcasts said that his 20s was very toxic. And I totally agree with that. I feel that in your 20s, you're just trying to find out who you are. You're getting to that. You've left your teenage years have died, and now you're in your 20s. And I feel that you're getting to the point now where you're trying to become an adult. You're not quite an adult. You haven't quite got your shit together, but you're thinking that you're an adult. And then once you get past 30, then you realize, wow, man, what I was doing when I was 20 was stupid. And all these people, but most of them, if you're drinking in your 20s, you've got a lot of drinking buddies too. That's the other thing. You know what I mean? You got like, as soon as you stop drinking, you'll lose about 6 people around you.
Yeah, it's like 50% of.
Yeah. So I feel like the people that are around me these days, the ones that call me and don't want just something from me and want to just, hey, let's hang out. I have people like that. They're random sometimes, don't see them for a year or 2 years, but when we catch up, it's like normal. I'm actually traveling with one of my friends next week to Africa, and this guy travels everywhere with me. If I tell him, listen, bro, we're going to Africa, he's like, booking my ticket now. Yeah, we try to do it 2-3 times a year. I have another friend that we do it. There's normally 3 of us, and we always have that bond that we try to see things together, experience something together.
Are you planning to have kids at some point?
I'm thinking of having one.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm thinking of having one.
How would you, raise your kid in the social media?
And that's a very difficult one. That for me, that's what's stopping me having a kid right now, if I'm honest with you. I'm trying to, I want to live a little bit more of my life. I want to be an older dad. I still have stuff I want to see, and I don't want to be living with any regret to say, I wish I did this, and I'm just going to do it. Everything in the next few years, I'm just going to do it. Places I want to see, places I want to travel, little things on the bucket list, tick them off. But I feel that it's going to be a very difficult one. I feel when I have kids, it sounds crazy, but I'm going to live somewhere out in the sticks. I want to live on like my own farm. I want to have my own land. I want to teach this kid how to survive and how to live properly, because I think that's important. The way that kids are brought up in society now, they don't have half the stuff we're taught. My dad was teaching me how to check your oil in your car, to check your brakes, to check your tire pressure. People can't do that these days. They're not taught this kind of stuff. Everything is done from technology. So if technology goes down one day, how are you going to do these things?
They wouldn't have a way to Google how to make that or to change that.
Last week, I was getting a suitcase out the back of my car. I had my phone in my top pocket, fell out, picked it up, smashed to pieces.
Ooh.
I'm going away in a week. I'm like, I need that for everything I need. I need to go to pick up post. So that's all done on an app. All of my bookings for my clients is on an app.
Yeah, true.
So I get to the shop and I say to the guy, lucky enough there was a shop around the corner that could fix it. And I told him, listen, man, you've got to save my life because this is how we live these days. And he understood. So he got it done quickly. But I had 24 hours without a phone and I had to use my brain more. You know what I mean?
I guess it felt amazing,
It was amazing. It was absolutely. I had to trust that my phone was going to get done on that time. I had this stupid little bit of anxiety in myself. And I said to myself, come on, man. You can get past this. It's just a phone. So I feel like that's the problem we're going to have as time goes on. Kids are going to be with a phone. It's going to be an extra part of them,
Like too dependent on the...
Yeah, when I was growing up, I think my first actual mobile phone was when I was about 14. And then internet. I think social media come around when I was about 21. I didn't have Facebook until I was 2021. So Instagram much later. So I still understand, what life was like before. That our generation, we have that ability,
It's funny you mentioned that because in my phone, I have like an app that blocks all the apps. I have to go there, click in there,
and shut everything down.
Yeah, so I usually, when I'm working something, I do a lot of, Instagram and stuff. So when I publish something, because of this dopamine hits, like how many views we get, how many likes, and I constantly found myself opening Instagram, TikTok all the time.
Yeah.
Thank God I found that app. So once I publish something, I block it for like 4 or 5 hours. And I cannot tell you how it feels to really take, back that time. It's just like, because the phone is pretty much useless at some point because nothing is working. Yeah. And I pick up a book, I go for a run.
Reading is important, man. I see you've got a lot of books here.
Yeah.
And reading is important because it helps you shut down that screen before bed, man. It's bad for me. I feel it. It changes my mood. And like you said, when you're posting stuff, you have this ability of wanting to keep checking. Go back, check more likes. Who's watching? It's very addictive. It's one of the most addictive things you can have. And I'm not saying that I'm any better than anybody else because it is difficult.
being a barber, a skilled one, thank you for the haircut.
No problem.
How did you master that craft? How did you, because you said you were in the beginning, what was your...
So when I was, when I got to about the age of, how old was I? I was almost, I think 13 or 14. My parents decided to move us out of London. London was getting really rough then.
Okay.
It was getting really, really bad. There was a lot of knife crime. Like there's a lot of knife crime now back in London. Back then when I was a teenager, there was a lot. I got, at one point, I nearly got robbed at knife point when I was about, I think, 13 years of age. That was a pretty bad one. My brother was almost stabbed in the leg as well. This was all in the same year, and some tragedies happened in the family, and my dad wanted a new lease of life. He was drinking a lot. I think his mental health wasn't good, getting in a bit of trouble. I mean, he was in his 30s then. He must have been about 36, so same age as me. And the city life was too much for him. He said, I want out, you know. So we moved to Clacton, and which is about an hour and 10 minutes, 20 minutes by train from London. It's by the coast, a seaside town. And so I moved there, and later on in life, I opened up a gym there. So yeah, I had a bodybuilding weightlifting gym, like a more of a manly gym, but this is before women were getting into weightlifting. Like now, this is as CrossFit was kicking off. So the gym culture then was big, but it wasn't like it is now. So I had to work really hard to make that business work. There was already 6 gyms in the area. I took this warehouse. I took a bank loan in my father's name. I borrowed such a small amount of money, and people were kind of telling me it wasn't going to work. They were like, man, you're not going to make this work. And I just worked every hour under the sun. I was working, 70 hours a week doing personal training, making sure that every bit of money I got, I bought new equipment. I bought more stuff. I asked the people in the gym, what do you need? I had no staff for the first, I think, year and a half. Then I started to get some staff, and then eventually I built the business up. And I remember it was my last time I drank alcohol. I went to a festival with my friends. So that's a good probably 13 or 14 years ago now. And went to a festival, got really wasted that weekend. I don't really remember what much. I remember so wasted I didn't even set my tent up because we was tenting. I just slept in the car, Just slept in the car. It was awful. And me and my friend, we partied hard. And I remember there being a fortune teller there. So there was a little like a circus tent, little lady doing tarot card and this kind of stuff, gypsy lady, yeah. So I said, let's go check it out. We'd been smoking a bit, so I said, why not? So we went in there, and she gave me like a palm reading, and man, she was pretty on point with what she told me, yeah. I don't know if it was the weed or what it was, but she told me that basically I have something in my life that's consuming me, and it's my business. You worked really hard for it, but it's now time that you're thinking of a change. You want to travel more. You're a bit of a, free spirit. You want to get out there and see the world a bit more. Maybe these are cliche things, but it made my brain start thinking. So after the festival ended, I went back to work, and I got a phone call one day. And this is when we still had landlines, and I answered the phone, and it was some kind of business that was buying other businesses. And they said, can we come down and evaluate your business because we're buying gyms in the area? So I said, sure. So people turned up, and they gave me a price on what they think it was worth, and I was like, "Wow, man, that's a pretty decent price." And I was training with one of my bodybuilding friends at the time. We was getting ready for competing in a show, and he said, "Well, who are these people in the suits?" I said, "Oh man, they want to buy the gym." He said, "What, you thinking of selling?" I said, "I never thought about it until this weekend." And he said, "How much they offer you?" I told him. He said, "Man, I'll give you that." So he went back with a business partner, and about 2-3 months later, they turned up with a bag of cash and bought the gym in cash in a plastic bag. So I had all this money, the most amount of money I had ever in my life. It wasn't a large amount, but once I paid all the bills off, I had a tidy amount of money. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to be stupid with it. I want to make this money last. So I said, what can I do next? And I didn't want to be a builder. My dad was a builder in the building trade, and I didn't really like that job. I wasn't cut out for it. I wasn't go out and getting my hands messy. But I always into style, fashion, and I was always loving going to get my haircut. You know what it's like, the feeling when you get a new haircut? Man, the confidence it gives you.
I can tell. Very stylish.
Exactly. So I felt like, a haircut, it don't matter if you're in a pair of old clothes, you have a new haircut, it just transforms you. So I thought, I want to become a barber. So went online, checked out, and this is before the huge craze that we had early 2000s when I think it was about the time I started learning is when shops started to pop up everywhere. You know, beards started to become a more popular thing. Men started taking more care of themselves because we had that era of men not sure in what they were, you know what I mean? And then it becomes men are more interested in, you know, eyebrows being done, beards being nice and sharp, skin fades. So, yeah, basically I went and done I called up for this college in London, in Hoxton, and they said, yeah, you can become a barber for like 2,000 euros. So I was like, oh man, that sounds good. I've never ever done any kind of barbering in my life. Bought the equipment, turned up on the first day, train ride all the way to London. 11-hour every day I did, 11 hours, from door to door, 11, 12 hours. And man, the first day I got there, I came back and I said to my mum, nah, it's not for me. It's not for me. Like, I just didn't like it. And she said, oh, so you're going to give up already? And I was like, that got on my nerves. When she told me, you're going to give up, I thought, no, I'm not giving up. I'm going to show you. So I went back, stuck with it, and I got better at it. And I then become to love it. I understood what basically being a barber was. It wasn't about cutting hair. It's about socializing. It's about being a salesman, because most people that get into barbering, they think they're in the industry of cutting hair. You're not, man. You're in the industry of psychology and also selling yourself, selling a service. And that's the thing. You've got to work with your clients. Like if you've got a wedding tomorrow and you need me, I've got to be there. I'm not going to let you down. That's what I do. So when I'm traveling on these big trips like next week, I'm working all sorts of hours to fit everybody in, because the long weekend there, everyone wants to look good. Christmas want to look good. Easter, you want to look good. Weddings, date with a first girl you're meeting, man, I got to look sharp. So I get all that. I understand. But my clients are also, the clients that I have now, I feel like I've had to sort of work with them and find some kind of connection, like we had a connection that time. And that's what makes the not only the service good, but also the conversation.
The experience.
I know so much about you now. This clients tell me more than they tell their wives sometimes. If they've got a problem at home, they're going to consult with me. And that's normal. And I keep everything close to heart. You know, I don't tell other stories as much. But over the years, I've had some crazy stories from people.
Let's hear them, man. Yeah, there we go.
I've had some crazy stories. Like, I remember when I was in Canada once, one guy told me, he was talking about travel. He lived on one of the islands. Where Vancouver's situated in Canada, they have a lot of islands. I can't remember how many islands, but I think it's over 30 islands they have. And this guy was telling me about life, and he told me some stories that changed my perspective. And he was talking about, got to live life to the full, travel a lot. He was a backpacker as well. He survived 2 plane crashes, So yeah, you meet all walks of life. I had a really good friend, Donovan, R.I.P. Donovan. He passed away a couple of weeks ago from fentanyl. He was a very interesting character. He was a native, Canadian native, and in and out of drugs all of his life. When his mum was pregnant with him, she was on drugs, so he was born addicted to drugs. Wow. Didn't know until he got later on in life. But he lived on part of the downtown Eastside of Vancouver. If most people have not been to Vancouver, I would check this place out. Downtown Eastside, East Hastings. This is one of the craziest places you'll see. It's just like Skid Row in Los Angeles. You'll see up to 3,000 homeless people in one area. So we're talking about one block. You'll see a lot of people, tents. They call it Tent City. People living up there doing a lot of heroin, a lot of fentanyl on the street, a lot of overdoses. So when I was there was the height of the fentanyl overdoses, the start of it. Most people, we don't know about this in Europe, but it's starting to hit Europe now. People are getting hit with fentanyl. They're putting it in all types of drugs. Even people that are buying cocaine. I had a couple of friends that died in an apartment from the fentanyl overdose.
But why they put it? Because I don't understand. Is it?
I think
to make it more powerful?
From what I know from speaking to a lot, I lived in this neighborhood. That's another crazy story that when I moved to Canada, I moved to this area because it was cheap. I didn't know nothing about Canada. So when I turned to Vancouver, I thought $600 a month for an apartment downtown, 5-minute walk from work, perfect. Man, my next door neighbor was a crack dealer. The room was roughly, I reckon, about 20 meters squared. You had shared bathrooms. with everyone on the floor. And when you went into this bathroom, these guys were using that as a place to jack up. You know, they were using the needles. And one day I went in there was over 100 needles in the shower. You know, it was a crazy place. I was stuck in there for about 6-7 months because Vancouver has a lot of students there from Asia. So depending on what time you get to Vancouver to rent, you can't find rent. So I found that place, and I had to put my bicycle in there because they were stealing bikes outside all the time. And the back alley was where the prostitutes used to take their customers. So man, I could hear everything that was going on, and some, you know, the chief of the fire service, I could hear him getting a blowjob one night. Some crazy antics going on. People heating up heroin outside your door. You know, you're trying to get out your apartment door. There's a guy slumped in front of the door. So I was living in that area for a while, and I had a client of mine. He was a Scottish doctor. He'd come from Scotland to help with the overdoses on the street. I think there was 150 maybe a month overdoses from fentanyl. So they're putting it in the heroin, they're putting it in cocaine. I think it's to give it a bigger hit. But the problem is that this fentanyl, two grains of salt is equivalent of an OD. So it's very easy to OD on this stuff. They brought out some kind of shot of adrenaline now that you can give people thing, but to see that was like, wow, because I always heard of Vancouver being such a beautiful city. I didn't know about this dark side of it. So when I moved there, I lived pretty much above the strip club, one of the most famous strip clubs there. So you saw all of that stuff going on. You see the people on the street, people injecting in the neck on the street at 9 a.m. when I'm walking to work. You know, it was really sad to see. And there was a lot of the natives, like my friend Donovan, that got hooked. And this is a typical thing that went on through the years because of when the British were there. The British, they got people hooked on alcohol back in the day, and then eventually turned to drugs. And it's sad to see. So, yeah, he was an amazing photographer. He's another person that inspired me to get into photography, but unfortunately he passed away from an OD a couple of weeks ago.
So how did that affected you as a person when you lose a person that is so close to your heart?
I think sometimes in your life you wish that you could be around these people more. I wish I could have carried on cutting his hair, because the part of me I feel is I helped him a lot get off of the drugs, kick the drugs, because when he was coming in for a haircut all the time, we hung out together and he became sober again. He had a wife. He was clean for a long, long time. And then I moved from Vancouver and I heard he got back on the drugs, and I was a bit, saddened by it. People are going to always do what they want to do in life, you know? People are always going to be selfish. But when I was around there, I kept him good. I kept him healthy.
So did you ever try to advise him and say, listen, man, this is not cutting it. You have to stop.
Yeah, you know, he had a son. Was talking about these things. I normally try to get people involved in a lot of sport. You know, I'm always, with a lot of people doing sports, boxing, do a lot of boxing together. In the winter, we do the ice. We go to the lake, sauna, which is an amazing thing to do in Poland. The dark months, it's a tricky one.
Because I want to actually ask you, to protect or build your mental health.
Yeah.
What kind of routine do you have? Because before we just started, we did this meditation. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Meditation, I discovered meditation about a couple of years ago, and I started using this app, Balance. I should work for them, to be honest. I've got so many
of the show.
Yeah, I got so many people on this application because I feel it does work. We're stressed all day. Living in this kind of society is not normal for us. Living in a city, especially like Warsaw, people don't realize how much Warsaw's grown since they lived here. When I moved here in 2017, you was here, 2011, 2012?
Yeah.
So when you first come here, this was like wide open space, flat city. Now you're starting to see skyscrapers going up. You're seeing the war brought a lot of Ukrainians here, a lot of Belarusians here. We've got a lot of Africans coming here now. So the city is getting packed. The roads can't handle it. I don't think the metro and the trams will eventually be able to handle it. So I feel like I'm stressed a lot. And if I don't meditate at least once a day, I forget about breathing. And that's what we do. We forget about breathing every day. It's not like something that you can just sit there and do. If we're engaging all day, we're not breathing. Like now, I'm not breathing naturally. I'm taking a breath here and there where I can. But to have a moment of silence, headphones in, in a park, lay on a field or lay on your bed and just close your eyes for a few minutes and meditate, you feel a lot better, man. A lot of de-stressing.
So you do meditation. What else? Tell me more about this called
So yeah,
ice.
I do my meditation is daily. I try to do that. If I miss it, then I'm really angry with myself, and that's why the application counts. You know, so if you miss a day, and then I do sports at least 4 or 5 times a week. So I do my boxing, I do my stretching. I do in the summer months and spring months. I do hot yoga. I go to Bikram yoga.
Yoga, what's that?
Yeah, so this is like this is a type of yoga, but done in a very hot room. So you get up to about 40 degrees inside. The more people, the better. The more you sweat, and this is like for the crazy kind of people that want something more physical from yoga. I tried to do other yogas. I'm not saying that they're not good. Personally, they just didn't help me. Hot yoga helps me because I feel like it's more of a mental space. It makes me frustrated, but makes me want to stick it. It's about 90 minutes sequence of stretching, twice through each stretch in 40 degrees. So you're sweating out a lot. It's basically detoxifying you.
Wow.
Every Sunday I religiously go. If I don't go, I feel it. I had a 5-month break and I felt it. I felt really like an old man, especially with my job. But then winter, I exchanged that for cold water therapy. So there's a small little man-made lake in Warsaw, and they set up some saunas there, and we do like an hour every Sunday with my friends. I try to get a group of us go, but it's a very difficult thing to do. I think it's one of the hardest things you can do is cold water in the winter. But it's the endorphins that you get out of it, the feeling that you feel once you're home and you've had a shower, eat your first bit of food, you feel very content. And that is what gets rid of the Warsaw blues for me. Because the winters are tough here, as you know, man. They're very, very tough.
I know.
Yeah. Most people that say they don't realize it, man, you're living on another planet. Like, this is, for me, one of the greyest, darkest places I live. People have this feeling that UK is very, very grey and dark. We get a lot of sunlight there. So for people that are not in Poland, we probably had the last 6-7 months of winter, right? And I'm not talking snow, because when it snows, it lightens everything up a bit. But when it's dark, man, here it's dark.
It's tough. It's hard.
Yeah.
Once you mentioned that you are planning next year to go full-on nomad.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that project?
Yeah, so me and my girlfriend, we kind of want to push the boundaries a little bit more and experience living in a van. I've done it before. I've lived in a van before. Done a lot of travel in camper vans. Camper vans are very popular in UK. As growing up as kids, we would go to camping sites and this kind of stuff. My dad has a caravan now, so you know, jumping in with a family and going to places, seeing the great outdoors, as they say. For me, I just want to experience not living in such a society at the time. I'm not doing this because it's trending. I've been doing this way back through COVID. I had a camper and I was traveling. I just want to feel like I'm not attached to a city all the time. I want to have less stress. I want to have a year of my life finding myself, doing stuff that I like doing. I want to focus on photography more. I will still barber. There's going to be places to barber along the way. But for me, I want to push the boundaries to see how we can survive and do some other odds and sods, as we call it, different kind of jobs, you know. I want to, if I go to a farm and there's some sheep shearing, maybe I'll try and shear a sheep, who knows, right? But yeah, I want to focus on myself. I want to have a year of like really good mental health, to feel no stress, because stress is affecting everything. It's affecting our gut. It's affecting our head, the way we think of things. It's affecting a lot. You know, even aches in our body, that's stress. Being like this, stressed out, angry all the time. Being in this, we're like living in a zoo. We're like an animal living in a zoo. We're pent up. We're aggressive. You see it on the roads in Warsaw. People don't want to give way to each other. They're in a rush. Got to get here. Got to get here. Everyone's living on the clock. You know, I don't want to live on the clock for a while. I want to live off the clock.
So where are you planning to travel? Is it in Europe or?
I think we will set up in Europe. I really want to see my own country. I've seen quite a bit of England, but I haven't seen it all. I got roots in Ireland. My grandfather, my mother's father. We didn't know him for a long time. He's from Ireland. I think he left. This is an interesting story. He left my mum I think when she was about 7 years of age. He left my grandmother with 5 kids.
Wow.
My mum's mother was a very strong lady. She was working 3 jobs, had 5 kids. And growing up around her, man, she was a character. Yeah, man. She started smoking when she was 50. She'd never smoked before. She started smoking when she was 50. She had cancer. She overcome cancer. Yeah, she lived to about the ripe age of about 87.
Wow.
Basically, I want to travel back, see a lot of my roots. So I want to do England, Scotland, Ireland in a full, not going to Edinburgh, not going to Dublin. I want to go and see the kind of places I want to go is to local towns, villages, and meet the real people and experience some interesting stuff.
And you'll be with your girlfriend. She's Polish,
full time. Right? Yeah, she's a psychologist. Very intelligent woman. Like, this is, for me in my life right now, this is one of the most mind-opening things of our relationship, of how we work together, our dynamics. We work really well together.
How did you meet her?
As usual, Tinder.
Tinder,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Interesting.
I'll be honest with you, Tinder has probably a 1% ratio. If you date 100 women, only one of them is going to be decent out of that.
That's not bad, to be honest.
Yeah.
And she just accepted the fact that, okay, I'm going to leave my job and do this thing with you. How did you prepare, or how are you preparing for this? Financially speaking, and
so every penny I have right now, apart from this trip to Africa is a very big trip for me. It's an important trip. I want to be doing an exhibition this year. We should be having this happen in Warsaw in September. So if you're interested, I'll share more details later through the weeks. So going to Africa, I want to photograph Africa before I think Africa won't be Africa anymore. I think in the next decade, Africa is going to change much more. Growing up as a child, watching a lot of David Attenborough, watching Safari on TV, it was mind-blowing to me. I love animals. As you know, I don't eat animals. I'm very much an animal-based kind of person. Always had dogs in my life, cats, lived in many places with different wild animals. So for me to go there, capture the wildlife, capture the tribes, this is very important. I want to see where we're from. I want to go back, see where we're from and how people live and how they're still living like this, how stressed they are. If they have depression, if they have anxiety, I guarantee they don't. And so I want to see this. I want to experience this.
That is a very interesting point.
Yeah.
I like it. So you go to Africa next week, and then
for 2 weeks, then I'm coming back, and then everything else goes back in the piggy bank and save it.
I see.
We'll buy the van. We're going to then build the van how we want it to look. My girlfriend needs space to work. She's going to need space to work. I'm going to need shower. I'm going to need a kitchen. So this is a full house on wheels. This is what it's going to be, it's
and you just that's actually very impressive. It's just going to be driving around and experiencing
exactly meeting very interesting people. I have plans to have a podcast from my camper van. Definitely when I get this running, I'm going to have you on there, of course.
Absolutely.
And basically I will have full amount of days to photograph, and I want to show people. So this means having some kind of YouTube account where I can show people how I'm photographing. And basically start to earn some money from my artwork, because it's been a decade of taking pictures. I got a lot of crazy cool pictures that I want to show, and the problem is with photography, photographs are not built to be looked at on a phone. You got a screen this big, you're not going to see full potential of the picture, the background, the colors, the framing. So having this opportunity to photograph and have exhibitions along the way is going to be very important for me to get my work finally out there. Anyone who's a photographer wants to have an exhibition. It's the next step up of what you want to do. It's like being a barber, having your own barber shop. It's the next thing, the next level. So, yeah, basically my girlfriend will go full-time psychologist on the road.
So it's going to be like a Zoom call.
So a lot of it right now. See, this is where we're in this kind of dynamic of the world. People are working hybrid. So some people are working fully from home. Some people are working half and half, or 5 and 2s, or 5 and whatever you call it, 5 and 1s. And I'm at work full time, so I need to find work along the way for me. I also need to fund the trip through photography. So I'll put prints up for sale and stuff like that. Exhibitions along the way, and she will work remotely from the van. And I'm thinking that she's got 10 years of education in psychology. So she's very educated in her stuff. Makes a lot of sense. I think that's why we connected a lot. I found someone in life that I feel has put a lot of work into themselves, like I put a lot of work into ourselves, and we're starting on a clean slate. We don't have baggage. The baggage is left, you know? Like, I think the problem with what I was meeting on Tinder and dating in this day and age is that you're meeting people that are carrying baggage with them.
Yeah.
They're on dating applications, and they need to go see a psychologist. So
therapy, yeah.
They're coming in with mental health problems. They're jumping on Tinder after a breakup, not quite fully over the breakup. Men, we do this. I mean, I'm guilty of doing this in the past. That to get over somebody, we're going to need to go meet someone else. Whereas we need to learn. Being alone is the most important time to be vulnerable, to understand yourself, to go traveling, to find yourself. Then you're ready to date. If you're going to go on a date with a girl and all you're going to talk about is your ex-partner, man, this is very off-putting. You know what I mean?
Nobody want to hear that shit.
Exactly. So you can. It's healthy to talk about past sometimes, but when your past is predicting your future, that's not good. You need to leave that. So it was. I remember the week that I met her, I'd had a extraction on a wisdom tooth. Never had a wisdom tooth. I never had anything done to my teeth. Just cleaning. This is the first time I had something done to my tooth, and I had a nasty infection. Like, doctor didn't put me on antibiotics. The dentist said, "No, you don't need them." And I had me and my buddy that I'm traveling with Africa. We both had problems with our teeth. We're these kind of idiots that we had a tooth extraction, and instead of sitting at home and resting, we're out doing sports. So then, this is our problem. So he had to have a little hole drilled in his face. He had to have a straw hanging out to release all of the toxins. And I'm at home, mouth like this, miserable, going to work every day. And marijuana was my help. Yeah, man, it was the best painkiller. And the first date, she came over. She brought a dog, which is obviously my dog now. Brought him over, a little Cosmos. And her presence made me feel better. And I thought, wow, this is the first time I've had a date where the person is also engaging. I'm not having to do all the conversation. There's conversation back. Do you ever find that you go on a date and you're having to find all of the questions and answers all the time?
It's very annoying.
It's nice to meet people with self-drive, self-interest.
But I guess it's about the connection. You obviously, both of you have this kind of emotional.
I think both of our parents are together, so her parents are together as well. She has a strong family unit. She's an only child. I have a brother, but there is a lot of similarities in our family. Although we're from both different countries, I can see her father is similar to my father, her mother is similar to my mother. We don't even speak the same language, but we understand each other. And I think I think the most important thing is when you're dating also is family background of somebody. When the parents are still together, you'll see a much more balanced, a lot of the time, you'll see a lot more balanced woman, vice versa to a guy. If the father figure isn't around for the woman, I feel like we have this cliche word, daddy issues.
Daddy issues.
Yes, which I know people don't like this label, but it's kind of true. If a woman doesn't have a father figure around when she's young, there is potential for there to be problems. And I think it's the same with a guy. If he doesn't have a father figure around and he's raised just by his mother, there can be problems. Or if he doesn't have a good relationship with his mother, there can be problems towards women. If he doesn't respect his own mum, how's he going to respect a woman? You know what I mean? So I always had a good mother figure and a good father figure. And I think, as much as there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on in my family, a lot of suicide, a lot of depression, a lot of anger, people going to prison, and all sorts of mixed up stuff going on. My family, my parents somehow stuck through all of this, and we're each other's rock. And I think when we're dating, we're subconsciously looking for someone similar to our family. We see value in a woman that's similar to our own mum, and it's horrible to say that, but it's true. You know what I mean? Because the mum is the nurturing person of the family. We want a woman to be nurturing to us.
So how to fight that? Because I have... it's good that you mentioned that. My ex said that. I said, You're looking for your mother,
Yeah.
In all this. And I haven't had the best, relationships, but it is true that we try to always find, what was missing, and I am thinking in a psychological aspect, how to overcome that need for looking, let's say, you had this amazing relationship with your mother growing up, and now that you're an adult, you're all the time looking for this mother figure in the woman you would like.
Yeah, I think that is naturally built into us because of reproduction. Like, we're looking at someone like our mum that's going to be strong like our mum to bear our child. Even if you don't want kids, it's subconsciously we do that. This is what we do as humans, yeah? I think the one thing that I'm looking for is not a replacement of my mum. It's not that. It's I believe that the manners, the moral and the respect that my mum showed me is what I look for in a woman. A woman to be loyal, respectful, you know what I mean? To be honest with me, to call me out on my shit. Like, I don't want someone not to call me out on my shit because they don't care about me. So I'm looking for the basic instincts, I think. But I think with dating takes time. You can't know everything about someone on the first time you meet them. You will notice certain little things, like a guy opening the door for a woman. I think these are things that people say it's sexist these days. I think this is normal manners. If I saw someone struggling with a box and I'm stronger than them, I'm going to help them, if it's a man or a woman, if it's an old guy or an old woman or someone young. I think these are things that we've got to label these days. Oh, it's sexist. Oh, it's racist. Oh, it's this. We've got to put everything into a box. Everybody's got to fit into a box. You know what I mean? You can't just be yourself these days. You've got to be put into a box. I'm this, I'm that, which I think is the same with dating for me. We don't have to necessarily put everything into a box. I'm not going to find someone exactly like my mum, because my mum has flaws. Like everybody, I have my own flaws. My girlfriend has some flaws. But I think the main thing that I look for in a relationship straight away is, like we spoke earlier, you come to someone's house, bring something. Don't just turn up. You know what I mean? Like, knock on the door. Don't just open the door and come in. Like, these are basic things that I feel in dating as well as friendship these days. This is not just a thing about women. This is men as well doing it. No one has any manners anymore.
So did you notice any differences in the dating culture in the UK and in Poland?
I think everywhere I've been, the dating culture can be different, very different. One thing I will say is all women complain about the men in their country. It's always the way.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Men complain. Like, there's perfectly good British women there to date. Of course there is. Like, when people tell me, oh, all English women are ugly, come on, man, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
Because not everyone in England is English. There's so many mixes. England is an island full of mixes. Like, growing up in London, my high school, being white there, we were a minority. There was so many mixtures of race, of creed. There was everything, man. Like, I remember growing up with Polish kids, Albanian kids, kids from India, kids from Pakistan. I remember Jesus every year was changing color. It was normal. If there was Ramadan on, I knew about it because we was in our class. Unfortunately, in Poland, they don't have this in high schools because it's not so mixed. It will be later on. Give it another 10 years, it will change. It's changing already, right? Yeah. For the likes of me and you coming here. So I feel that basically, where was I going with that? I lost my chain of thought.
The difference in the culture of the dating culture.
Yeah, so basically every country that I was in, I felt that the certain little things changed. Religion changes in a lot of places. Religion can be very similar if it's radical. If it's radical Islam, if it's radical Catholic, it can be very similar because you're putting the girls, so much pressure on the girls to be a certain way. And Poland is a little bit like that. All girls here, they grew up in a Catholic regime. I would say at least 80% of people here grew up in the 90s and the 80s with a religious background. Holy Communion, christening, all of this kind of stuff. Marriages in a church. I didn't see that in England so much. In England, now I think Christianity is a minority again. I think Muslim is probably a higher percentage. So for us, having kids doing fasting in school was normal. Sometimes we would join them, we'd do it for 1 day or 2 days.
Support,
for support and whatever. We understood the kids couldn't play sports, they were too tired. we understood all of this stuff. So I feel like in Poland, dating here, girls are just a little bit more traditional still. I feel like in other countries, especially England, girls are less traditional, more freedom, I would say. Think that changes things. I feel like Poland's probably still about 10 years behind. I'm not complaining. I think tradition is good in some parts. The world is not so black and white. You can't say you're left or you're right. I feel like some things are good, some things are bad. And I like the nurturing side of the women here. I feel like a lot of the women here, they are really good at supporting their man. And I think men should step up and do the same on the other side. But at the end of the day, I feel like women are still traditional here. Independent, strong, but still traditional, which I like to see. They still like to go on a date.
So do I.
You know what I mean?
I love it. I love it. Jake, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for coming
you, man.
Show. Good luck with your trip.
Thank you.
I look forward to being a guest in your caravan. I don't know. I can catch you somewhere.
Yeah, man.
In Europe.
There'll be times where I'm sure my girlfriend's going to have enough of me. She'll go with her parents and we'll have a couple of days somewhere.
But that's very exciting. I wish I could do the same, but I think at some point I have to do it as well.
Of course, man. You gotta. Oh, if you're building like something like this now, it's going to be amazing to go and do it, especially from Morocco.
Thank you so much,
man.
Cheers, man.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Warsaw Confidential podcast. If you've enjoyed our journey together and wish to support us further, please consider subscribing to our podcast and leaving us a review. Your feedback not only motivates us, but also helps in growing our community. As a token of our appreciation, we've partnered with Meknes, a brand where Moroccan craftsmanship meets modern luxury. Exclusively for Warsaw Confidential listeners, Meknes is offering a 15% discount on their exquisite collection of leather goods. To claim your piece of luxury, visit meknes.com and use the code WARSAW15 at checkout. Thank you once again for supporting both the Warsaw Confidential podcast and Meknes.